Hello everyone, I am Prof.JaishreePremkumar and I am your instructor for this video lecture, which is the continuation of our previous lecture on listening, in which we discussed difference between listening and hearing and also how to be a good listener, right? So in this lecture, we'll discuss barriers or problems which we can encounter while trying to be a good listener. In other words, what this means is that there are times when, though we wish to be a focused listener, problems or barriers could happen because of certain reasons which are external or internal to us. And in this lecture, we'll discuss these important barriers and also the possibility of overcoming these barriers. Okay. So let us begin with our first barrier to effective listening, which is called marginal listening. So let us first understand what is meant by marginal listening. So marginal listening happens when there is an overloading of information from the speaker's end. So though the topic might be interesting and the learner might sincerely feel drawn towards the topic, as the information becomes excess in terms of retention strength of the listener though might be attentive in the beginning, after realizing that the speaker is giving overloading of information, might begin to feel tired, right? Uh, Do you think this has happened with you in the classroom at some point of time? That though you are physically present and you were attentive, slowly you are becoming a selective and marginal listener? If it has happened, then now you should feel relieved and happy that it is not because of any problem from your end, but because of overloading of information from the speaker's end. As we know that listening is an intellectual activity and needs willing attention of the listener. With overloading of information, the listener can thus become a marginal or selective listener. That is, listening to only those points which were discussed in the beginning, and by the time the speaker is going ahead with overloading of information, the listener begins to ignore the next points which are discussed. So this might result in getting superficial knowledge or just a cursory knowledge of the topic discussed. Now, to remove this barrier, speakers should ensure to keep the subject matter as interesting as possible, as well as making it interactive. Now, how the speaker can make it interactive? By asking occasional questions and by giving chance to the listeners to summarize or to present their views or understanding of the topic discussed. Interactive sessions would ensure that listener or students understand as well as retain the information given by the speaker, right? The next barrier in effective listening could come in the form of language barrier. So, when do you think this happens? Yes, there are times when the speaker may not have a good command over language or may not also speak the same language. So the language could be unfamiliar to the listener. Thus, if the speaker speaks in English, where majority of the listeners do not understand it properly, it would create an obstacle to effective listening, right? Can you think of some other language barriers in effective listening? Yes, you're right. Difficult words, jargon, that is technical language, and some unclear phrases. These two fall in the category of language barriers in effective listening. Now, in order to avoid these linguistic barriers, which are also called as semantic barriers, the speaker should ensure that she or he shares common language with the listener, and that language also should be simple, easy to understand, and most importantly, it should be jargon free. Now, the next barrier in effective listening could come in the form of noise. In fact, noise is considered as one of the main obstacles to effective listening. Uh, Aeroplane landing or takeoff, then train noise or traffic noise can disturb the listener, right? Even defective machines such as sound system come under noise barrier. Now, this barrier definitely could be removed, right? By ensuring that uh, the place where important communication is being held is free from noise. And if the noise is from outside, then you can close the door to minimize this distraction. Okay, so the next important barrier is dislike of the speaker. Can you tell me in which category does this particular barrier come under? Yes, you're right. Dislike of the speaker comes under psychological barrier because it pertains to our preconceived idea or notion of the speaker. The listener may develop dislike for the speaker because of, say, certain physical characteristics like eyes, facial features, etc. Now, such dislike for the speaker, which is called as horn effect, creates a negative attitude towards the speaker, and the listener might not pay attention to what the speaker says. Here, the listener needs to understand that the first impression need not and should not be the last impression, and we cannot judge a person with biased or prejudiced attitude. As a listener, one needs to know that first impressions are subjective. They are usually biased on what you notice about someone rather than any actual information that you have of the speaker. You need to remind yourself that the face someone shows to the world at any given of time may not be accurately representing the actual self. You need to make an effort to truly know the person after listening to him or her carefully. So, having an open mind can help the listener remove this horn effect with the speaker. Next, there could be a barrier because of meaningless topic. So, what is this meaningless topic? Here, the listener might consider the topic as something which is uninteresting, and so the listener might not listen to the communication or to the topic not because of dislike for the speaker but because of dislike for the topic. So here again the barrier is created in communication. Now, how can you remove this barrier? Again, this is from the speaker's side. This barrier can be removed to a certain extent by the speaker by trying to make the topic as interesting as possible by using strategies such as audiovisual aids and by providing opportunity to the listeners to express their opinions or feedback. Uh, the last barrier to effective listening could be fake listening. Okay, so there are some listeners who can act as if they are attentive listeners, when in reality, they might not be paying any attention to what the speaker says. They might not to whatever the speaker says, but actually they might be thinking of some other topics in their mind. Um, have you any time been a fake listener in the classroom? If yes, then there is nothing to worry because fake listening does happen in the classroom. But of course, it could be removed by the speaker by making the session interactive. Instead of having that one-sided lecture, does the in the process of getting responses or occasional feedback from the audiences or from the students, it actually invariably leads to having the active, conscious, and completely focused listening activity, right? Okay, so with this, we conclude this session. which was on various barriers to listening and how these barriers could be overcome. Thank you for your attention. Namaste.